Welcome to the OpenSciEd teacher video series for thermal energy. My name is Chris. I'm an OpenSciEd 6th grade teacher, and I'm happy to share thermal energy lesson 3 with you because I love that during this lesson the students hit a serious productive struggle moment, a part of the phenomena that's really challenging to explain, leaves them wanting more. And the first couple times I taught this lesson, I kind of missed the moment, so I'm going to make sure that you don't make my mistake. The video that you're going to see is divided into 4 segments. Very briefly, I'll share how we got here, lesson outline, highlighting some key moments. We'll dig into those key moments, and I'll share what's happening and things to look and be careful of. And lastly, I have a few materials, tips, and tricks for you to help make the lesson go smoothly. So how did we get here? So in lesson 2, we worked together and we completed the cold cup test. We gathered a bunch of data, we found some patterns, and then we used the data and the patterns we found to rank 8 cups in order from the best functioning cup to the worst functioning cup. And in the end, we were left wondering, well, would we have the same order? And would things work the same if we used hot water instead of cold water? And in this lesson, we're going to try to find out. So this lesson is an investigation lesson. It takes 2 days. It's material prep. The teacher's guide says about 30 minutes. It really should be a lot less because all of the materials you use in lesson 2, you're going to use in lesson 3. So they're all out and ready for you. There is a hands-on investigation, and you don't have to have a device for this one, but it is helpful in that it helps you sort the data that you're going to collect. In general, this lesson is spread over 2 days. Each day has 2 big chunks to it. On day 1, the biggest chunk of time is for the investigation with the hot water, but the second chunk of time is the one I'm noting as the key moment, where they analyze that hot water test. And what they do to analyze it is really important to their sense making. So we'll dig into that in just a moment. And on day 2, if you are the person who has been waiting for the moment in OpenSciEd where you introduce formal science investigations with variables and controls and constants, etc., this is your moment, and I've noted it as the key part of this day. What do we figure out from this lesson? We figure out that the same features that keep drinks cold seem to keep things hot. We're not really sure how that works, and we try to explain that, and it's kind of hard. And we also figure out that investigations or experiments begin with a question, but then leads to choosing specific variables and things to keep constant and things to measure. So we get a little formal with our investigation. Let's dig into those key moments. This is the day 1, the last bit of the class there. It's after the hot water investigation. And I mentioned before, but the majority of day 1 is slated for the investigation, but the real moment of challenge comes when you ask the kids to model how can a cup be both good at keeping something cold and good at keeping something hot? Or how can a cup be terrible at keeping something cold and keeping something hot? And the teacher's guide gives 15 minutes for this section, and you have a whole sort of data analysis, kind of similar to the one you did in lesson 2. And that is important because we need to find those patterns and notice that it does do both. But then it gives a really short bit of time, like 5 or 7 minutes for the kids to try to model this themselves. And it's not enough time. So it's really important that you build out some time for them to try to do this. And I will tell you that, sometimes when I'm grading science notebooks, and I ask the kids to put a sticky note on a day that shows their best science thinking, and that's the day I'll look at. And almost every time the kids pick this day, and there's a couple notebook examples there on the screen for you. So that is a key moment, and don't overlook it. I did, and it really helps drive the science that you'll do in future lessons forward. The other key moment comes on day 2. And I want to mention that sometimes this feels like a repeat. It's really not. This is the part of the lesson where you formalize the investigation process. And really, we've now done 3 passes into investigating these cups. We first did the cold cup investigation in lesson 2, where they first learned how to use thermometers, and they first learned how to use timers, and things were really messy, and it was hard for them to do. And then just yesterday, or the day before this one, you would have done the hot cup test to where you repeat that experiment, and things got a little easier and they got a little cleaner and the kids were better at it. And now we're going to take those two experiences and we're going to turn them into a formal investigation around what role does the lid play? Is it really critical? And right after that, you add in an extra layer, which is developing procedures. And the teacher's guide says, have the kids create some procedures of how they would test the lid and then come back together as a class and make a class set of procedures. But I find that that's a little frustrating for kids because they really don't know how to do this. And it's the first time they're taking a pass at it. So I will often just do a group procedure and then act out their procedure at the end. Like have a little fun with it and be like, is this actually going to work? Can we do this in the way that we've created? So just a little note there that it might be easier just to do this as a whole group. I have a few materials management tips for you and a couple of tips and tricks about the key moments in the lessons. First one, for posters and artifacts to have up and around, having the model that you made as a class available while they're making their individual models is really helpful to kids because it gives them a way to look at and try to remember what to include. Also, you're going to create this procedure as a class, and that procedure that you create, you're going to use again in lesson 4. And if you don't save it, you're going to have to recreate it. So make sure you save that somewhere safe, whether it's electronically or on paper, whatever it takes, but make sure you hang on to that. I want to bring you back to that part 3 where they are making their best and worst cup models. It's one of the things that happens is they don't know how to start. And so I usually give them a couple of suggestions, or I ask the class to have a couple of suggestions, like how would we create this in our notebook? And there's a couple of examples from my students' notebooks there for you, but the two most common ones that they'll use, one is the split cup, which is the one that's over here on the right, where they make like the best cup, and then half of it is cold and half of it is warm, and they work to explain that. The other is they actually just create two individual cups, and then they do warm and cold separately. But it really is helpful for them to have a place to start. And it's really an important moment because this is going to prompt lesson 4. It is also going to prompt the entire second lesson set, like where we talk about what is the difference between warm and cold liquid particles or warm and cold solid particles. And that gets put in there. This was super important to us. We found out that they sell hot water dispensers. And this lets you just not worry about kettles and heating water to the right temperature and then mixing it to get it to the temperature that the kids won't burn themselves. This can be set for any temperature from it's 40 all the way up through 100 degrees Celsius. So it's really, really helpful. But also, I have actually literally done this lesson simply using hot tap water. The tap water in our school is hot enough that we can watch it cool down over time, and it works just fine. Little thoughts about words. There's a lot of them in this lesson, but there's only one we're going to add to the word wall, and that's variable. It's also mentioned in lesson 2, so we've experienced it a couple times. We do talk about independent variable, dependent variable, and controlled variables, but they don't really know how to use them very well yet. They just identified it for this one lab with a lid. And so waiting a little while before they have a better understanding before adding them to our word wall is usually a good moment, and it lets them put them in that category of words we earned as opposed to words that we encountered. Navigation to lesson 4 is simple because at the end of lesson 3, you literally have just created an investigation plan, and that is what you're going to try for the first thing tomorrow. So thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful to you, and good luck.